What's going on, summoners? Welcome back to another ProGuides video. I'm Kangas, and today we're discussing counter picks of some of the more popular and OP champs on patch 11.15. We'll be going over the runes, builds, and playstyles to effectively counter specific matchups so that the next time you run into one of these champions, you'll have the game knowledge and confidence to bully your opponents. So hit that sub button and let's get right into it. Starting off in the top lane, we got one of my favorite champions of the game that you will probably lose a lot of respect for me now, Teemo into Camille. Now, we've talked many times about how Camille is an incredibly overbearing top laner. She can outtrade almost anyone that she comes up against, and even in her hardest lanes, she can at least farm and sustain with W. Ever since Darius fell out of the meta, there aren't too many picks that you can really take into her, and at the best, most of them are still skill matchups where one screw up means you lose. But then, there's Teemo. Teemo's constant range pestering means that there's no way Camille can just scrape by the laning phase with W spam. But at the same time, there's also no way for her to go in for any more meaningful trades, since you can just blind her and run away. But you need to understand that there is one rule to this matchup. Do not mindlessly spam your Q to harass her. You need to have it available for when she tries to go for an all-in. If you see her going for a hookshot, be ready to blind her just before she reaches you. Even with the stun connecting, she's unable to do anything further. Obviously, take that with a grain of salt. If you got her in a spot where you can go for a trade anyways, you can still use it, especially if you're close to kill range. For your build, you'll be starting Doran's Ring and then go for a Nashor's Tooth Rush. Next, pick up Sork Shoes, Liandry's Anguish, and Demonic Embrace. You'll top off your build with Void Staff and Rabadon's Death Cap for maximum damage. And if you feel like you need more Grievous Wounds, Morellonomicon over Demonic Embrace may be a good idea, especially if Camille goes for Ravenous Hydra over Titanic. Now, having solid counter picks is definitely an important part of winning in solo queue, so if you're playing off the back foot from Select, odds are you're already in a bad spot. But there's more to it than just that. You also need solid fundamentals if you're actually trying to climb seriously, so whether you're new to the game or have years of bad habits produced, it can be hard to find direction on your own. But don't worry, that's where we come in. At ProGuides.com, we got courses from all of your favorite streamers and pros like CoreJJ, Aframu, and Xmithy to help you fully understand how to play your role. And if you want a more personalized one-on-one experience, we also have top-tier coaches available 24/7 to help you anytime you want. Whichever option you choose, we're guaranteed it'll help you climb. So check it out if that sounds interesting. But now moving on to our next top lane matchup, we have Illaoi as a counter to Sett. Illaoi has always been the go-to answer for tanks, and she's just as suited as an answer to juggernauts. Their lack of mobility and more extended trading patterns work perfectly in her favor. Anytime Sett wants to trade with you in lane, he's pretty much just running at you in a straight line, so he's a very easy target for your E. And if he's trying to fight you in a wave, just throw out a Q and a W for some extra slams to clear those pesky minions out of the way first. Once your E then connects, you pretty much cannot lose the trade. The key to winning versus Sett is to deal your damage in a more extended manner versus being bursty, so you don't just instantly fill up Sett's grip meter in trades. This will take away his most valuable trading tool with his massive true damage nuke. So to do that, you'll keep trading with your E and never fully go for an all-in with your ult just because you land it. Wait until you soften him up a bit with a few trades and then go for the finish once you land an E when he's already under half HP. For your items in this matchup, you go for a Corrupting Potion start and build that into a Divine Sunderer as your first item. Next, you want to pick up Plated Steel Caps, Sterix Gauge, and a Bramble Vest, and after that go for Death Stance, Spirit Visage, and Thornmail. If you want more damage, you can go Black Cleaver after Bramble and then cut Spirit Visage. Now for the jungle, our first matchup is Nocturne as an answer to Lee Sin. More than this being a direct counter to him, it's more that Lee can't really do anything to you. He can still apply a good amount of early game pressure via ganks, as he is an early game champion after all, but when it comes to fighting you in a 1v1 around the Scuttle Crab, or trying to invade you and punish what's supposed to be your weakest part of the game, he's kinda helpless. Lee cannot win a 1v1 against Nocturne at a single stage of the game. Whether it's the first part of his Q, the second part of his Q, or his ult, if you spell shield one of these abilities, it will not be even close. And if Lee tries to stay clear of you, you just have way better clear speed than him and will easily be ahead on farm alone. Obviously, you want to try and read the map and show up to counter where he goes to gank when you can, but you won't be able to do that every time. As the game goes on, it'll be less about you countering him and more about you just playing Nocturne like any other game. Look for picks on squishies farming side lanes, and in teamfights, ult to make the enemy team panic, and then just jump onto any opponent that gets separated from the pack. For items, you'll go Ember Knife, Stride Breaker, Lucidity Boots, and a Sterix. With that core done, your last three items can be really any mix of the following: Guardian Angel, Black Cleaver, Kempuck Chainsword, Randuin's Omen, and Edge of Night. Even Wit's End would be good if there's 2 or more AP threats on the enemy team. Now for our second jungle matchup, we got Rek'Sai as an answer to ZHAO. Xin has been a top tier jungler for a few patches now, and for good reason. In this early game focused meta, his ability to both outgank and outduel almost every other pick leads him to completely dominating games. If you're a jungle main plagued by ZHAOs, Rek'Sai is your perfect remedy. With Rek'Sai, you can match and even outdo ZHAO's early ganks because Rek'Sai's tunnels allow you to score kills on opponents that are just barely even outside of turret range. And you don't just outdo him in that regard. Rek'Sai is one of the very few champs that can actually duel ZHAO early on. Xin does super well in extended fights, but Rek'Sai deals a ridiculous amount of burst damage so you can bring him down on your terms. We recommend a Conqueror page because it gives better scaling, but if you really care about stomping Xin early, you could opt for a Halo Blades page too. You'll burst him down before he even gets a chance to knock you up. Once you have your ultimate, you should pretty much win every 1v1 for the rest of the game, so feel free to constantly invade Xin. At the very least, you can get wards down and then track his movement, and at the best, you'll run into him and get an easy kill. Now for your items, if jungle was just about the 1v1, you'd want Ember Knife, but for the sake of ganking targets other than Xin, we'll take Hailblade. For Mythic, you'll go Prowler's Claw, then build into Plated Steel Caps and Edge of Night. After that, go for Steric's Gauge, Death Stance, and Guardian Angel. Next up for the mid lane, we got Wukong as a counter to Katarina. Now this may sound strange because Wukong has the lowest base magic resist in the game, but hear us out. Kat wins most of her mid lane matchups with her ability to go for all-ins at level 2 or 3. Even though she's not a new champ, most people are still caught off guard by how much damage that she does, and I honestly don't blame them. Every time I see it, it's still ridiculous how much damage her daggers do. But when it comes to monkeying around in early game all-ins, Wukong does this even better. His passive just gives him way too much armor and health regen to beat him out in extended fights. And now you may be thinking armor versus Katarina wouldn't be too useful because she is an AP assassin after all. But remember, in these early game all-ins, she has to auto-attack a lot, so he's actually getting a lot of value from this. Besides, with Wu's E and W, you can sidestep her daggers before they hit the ground, dodging most of her magic damage anyway. Once you have Sunderer, your trading gets disgusting, with EQ doing more than she could hope with a measly Q poke. And if she ever tries to Shampoo in, good luck, because your ult will make short work of her. Even in tough lanes, Katarina eventually outscales her opponents by reaching the point that she can just burst them down in fights. But with Wukong, you'll be too tanky for her to burst down later, even without itemizing towards magic resist. Now for the build. We're going to start with a Doran's Blade, build into Divine Sunderer, and then grab either Tank Boot option. Lucidity Boots are also viable and are best for 1v1ing Cat, but Tank Boots are usually better for team fights. After that, work towards a Black Cleaver, then Steric's Gauge, Death Stance, and a Guardian Angel. If the enemy team has multiple AP threats other than Cat, you can also go for Spirit Visage over GA. Now before we continue on with the mid lane matchup, I want to ask our question of the day. What is your favorite skin and favorite skin line? Now obviously your number one skin doesn't have to be the favorite skin line, but I'm curious about your answer to both. Personally, my favorite skin in the game is Elderwood Ornn. I don't know why, I just think it's so cool, plus it was like his first skin in forever. But my favorite skin line is actually the Pentakill skin line. Now in my older age, I'm kind of turning into a metalhead, so that's no surprise, but let me know your answer in the comments down below. Our next mid lane counter is Tryndamere into Yasuo. And honestly, I think this is one that a lot of you can appreciate. Yasuo is really annoying as a champ to deal with between his wind wall and constant zipping around with dashes. It almost feels like luck to be able to actually land something on him when you're playing a skill shot reliant champ. So that's why we just skip skill shots and just bash him with brute force via Tryndamere. When he starts trying to dash in and out of the wave, a simple right click is all you need to win your trade. His wind wall is rendered completely useless against your entire kit. While he can dash away from you, he has to come back eventually or he's not getting any farm. The second he does walk up, you just spin in and beat him up. One worrisome thing about dealing with Yasuo is his scaling, because once he has 2 items, he can shred most other carries regardless of how fed they are. This makes playing against him feel like you're racing against the clock. But with Tryndamere, with every crit hitting like a truck, you'll be able to outdamage him at all stages of the game. But even if you prep Zenato knocking you up and ulting at the start of the fight, well, you just ult after and pummel him. He's not going to blow you up in one go. There is one tip that I want to give for this matchup though, because in the earliest stages of the mid game where you may be side laning against him and don't yet have the items to just 3-shot him in 2 seconds, don't fight Yasuo on a wave. He may be able to get you to ult and then dash back through the wave without you able to finish him off. As long as you can fight him in the open though, he cannot win. For items, you'll start off with Doran's Blade and then go for Kraken Slayer, Berserker's Greaves, and Phantom Dancer. After that, you'll actually go for Navori Quick Blades to help reset your spin even faster, Infinity Edge for those massive crits, and then Cyrilla's Grudge for some sticking power. And moving things down to the bot lane, our first counter pick we have is Cassiopeia into Vayne. This matchup works for the same reason Casio beats most bruisers in the top lane. Miasma's grounding effect basically disables Vayne's tumble, which is the core of her trading. Without tumble, she can't roll forward to get that last auto in a trade, nor can she dodge incoming skill shots. And the big thing is it also takes away her ability to stealth after ulting. And even when Miasma is down, it's not like Vayne can just go for an all-in. Cassiopeia does just as much, if not more damage than her in fights, and once you have your ultimate, Vayne tumbling towards you is just a free kill. Aside from actually trading with her though, you'll also have a much better control over your minion wave. You can't spam too hard early game, but once you have your Lost Chapter, you have the pushing power and mana sustain to pretty much always shove the wave whenever you please. Having lane prio means being able to help out your jungler with a Scuttled Crab skirmish, look for an invade, or just use Gas's high DPS to take a quick dragon. And while you may be worried about being outscaled eventually on other champs, with Cassiopeia, that is not an issue. On top of your Miasma and ult making it very hard for Vayne to navigate teamfights, Cassiopeia is a contender for some of the highest DPS in the game when we're talking about full build carries. But speaking of the build, you'll start off with Tear of the Goddess in lane, and once you have gold for Lost Chapter, reset for it as soon as you can. You need that mana sustain. Build that into a Liandry's, then upgrade Tear to Archangel's Staff. After that, go for a Riley's Crystal Scepter, Cosmic Drive, Rabadon's, and Void Staff. If you feel like you need a Zhonya's, you can replace Cosmic Drive for it. Now our next bot lane matchup is a bit more of a traditional one, with Ashe as an answer to Kog'Maw. Kog has risen up lately in both popularity and in win rate, and with how hard he can carry games, having a solid answer is definitely something that every AD carry needs in their playbook. Ashe works exceptionally well here, because you get an early game bully targeting his weakest point in the game and attempt to nip him in the bud, without being some snowball reliant champion or a lane bully that falls off. But when Kog's W is up, you gotta be careful how you trade, basically just sticking to poking with your volley. If he's holding it, make sure you stay back and don't give him a chance to trade with it. But once it's down, you can be more aggressive. If you land a volley, take advantage of the slows and approach velocity to move in and get your Halo Blade autos. Once you have level 6 though, you can be a lot more aggressive in the lane, especially if you have a support that works well with that. Constantly force 2v2s and do everything that you can to slow down Kog'Maw's late game. Once out of lane, the nice thing is Ashe also has some really good scaling DPS. It may not be Kog'Maw level, but that's made up for with huge utility that you bring. Now let's talk about the build. We normally prefer Lethal Tempo on Ashe over Halo Blades, but in this specific matchup, we do like Halo Blades more because of the burst damage it gives. No one wins against Kog'Maw in extended fights, so this is the better option for the playstyle that you need to win. As for items, you'll start off with the Wyrn's Blade, then go for a Wit's End Rush, as Wit's End is just overall really strong as an item right now, and also against Kog'Maw, who primarily does AP damage. Aside from Kog'Maw, actually, Ashe is one of, if not the only other AD carry who can justify rushing it, since crit doesn't actually do a lot for her, and she has an attack speed steroid with basically no cooldown, which works well for on-hit builds in general. After Wit's End, grab Berserker's Greaves and Shield Bow, follow that up with a Gwynsu's Rageblade, Runaan's Hurricane, and Lord Dominic's Regards. If no one's tanky enough to warrant LDR, feel free to grab a Bloodthirster. Now moving on to supports, we got Blitzcrank as an answer to Lulu. Blitzcrank has always been a good answer to enchanters in general, and this patch has made it even more so the case. Extra damage on Q and ult means higher chance of actually killing your targets that you pull in the lane phase. But even if it ends up being a lane that you can't really win, even if you land a hook, just because your AD carry doesn't do damage, you can always look to roam. With his high-ranged hook, Blitzcrank roams are incredibly effective against mid laners that overextend even an inch off of their tower. Then, as you're roaming, the enemy bot lane is basically forced to shove the wave into your AD carry, and you and your jungler can go down together and then gank your own lane. Outside of lane phase, Lulu is great at dealing with divers jumping onto the backline, with her polymorph and ult being enough to deflect most threats. But if you're landing hooks, that doesn't really much matter. The bonus HP and shielding that she gives can't really save a squishy carry from being blown up when you get hooked into an entire team. So now let's look at the items for the matchup. Start with Steel Shoulder Guards and rush Moby Boots so that you can have some map presence. After that, build into Solari or Sorelia's, depending on which you think your team needs more, then pick up Zeke's Convergence and go for a Frozen Heart and a Ward Stone. And finishing up our list, we have Rel as a counter to Leona. With this pick, you are basically able to stop Leona from doing everything that she wants to at all stages of the game. In lane, Leona provides a lot of damage for such a CC-heavy champ, and as a result, she's usually fine to go into either the enemy AD carry or the other support, since she usually comes out with an HP trade. But as Rel, you're just too tanky for her to focus down, especially after you steal her Aftershock and W resistances with your passive. Going on your AD carry won't really work for her either, as you just use your W to jump on Leona's AD carry to prevent them from following up on the engage, and then you position your E so you stun them both. Not only will you be able to keep your carries safe, but after you get them away from danger, they can turn back and dish out some insane damage. Or if you're dealing with an aggressive AD carry like Tristana, they can even jump in with you and turn the fight on the enemy AD carry. Now out of lane, it's basically the same story. If Leona ever looks for an engage with her ult on your team, it's pretty likely that her team will funnel into follow. So this gives you the perfect setup for your own engage, with the potential to hit a massive combo to set your team up for an easy ace. For items, you'll start off with a Relic Shield, then build into Solari and Steel Caps, and then go for Zeke's, Abyssal Mask, and Wardstone. If you think you need more movement speed, you can replace Abyssal Mask with Dead Man's Plate, or if you're feeling too squishy, go for a Gargoyle Stoneplate instead. So that'll conclude our latest episode of Counter Picks. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to sub to the channel so you never miss out on our new videos, and also like the video to help us out. Oh, and one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description box below, where you can hang out, discuss League further, or just make friends to play with. Anyway, that's it for today, so best of luck on the Rift, everybody. Stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one.